Yo, what's up everyone? My name is Andrew Warren, and I've got another pretty interesting video for you all today. And the main topic of this video is just going to be giving my personal opinion on why I think Robinhood is the best investment app out there currently. And part of my motivation for creating this video came from some recent events that happened with Robinhood in my personal account. And trust me, I know that Robinhood does have some problems. There are some things that they can improve on. But before I even go on to talking about why I think it's the best option out there, especially for beginner investors, before we even go on to that, I just want to talk about how recently I finally got access to the Robinhood Fractional Shares. I signed up on the Fractional Shares feature waiting list as soon as I saw the notification on my phone. And finally, recently, I just now unlocked it. And if you don't know what fractional shares are, before this feature was unlocked, for example, let's look at Microsoft. Let's pretend I wanted to buy a share of Microsoft. So you can buy one share, and that's usually how it goes. But for example, say I don't have enough money to buy the full share of Microsoft. Say I only have $95. Well, normally, if you didn't have the fractional shares feature, you would not be able to buy it, and you would have to resort to buying another cheaper stock that may not perform as well. However, now that I have the fractional shares feature and that I've gained access to that, I can either invest in terms of the amount of shares that I want, or I can type in the exact dollar amount that I have to invest. So for example, let's say, like I said earlier, I only have $95 to invest, but I want it to be invested into Microsoft. So now that I have fractional shares enabled, I just put that 95 in there. It will buy the decimal amount of shares that equals that $95 price tag, and then I click review order and accept it. Or, for example, let's say I don't want to buy a full share, but I want to buy a certain percentage of a share. So say I only want 75% of a Microsoft share. So all you have to do is type in 0.75, and then it will give me 75% of a share. And as you can see, that equals $123.26 rather than the full share price of $164. So you can either choose it based on the amount of money that you have to invest, or for whatever reason you want to only invest in a certain percentage of one share, then you have that option as well. And I think that is really awesome, and I'm so glad that they're finally adding that into Robinhood, and eventually everyone is probably going to get access to this. But obviously, before this feature was enabled on my account, that was one of the disadvantages with Robinhood compared to a lot of other brokers out there, because the norm is that you can usually do this anyways, and it was kind of a disadvantage that Robinhood couldn't do this. So moving on with that, now that I finally got that feature enabled recently, the morning after I got that feature enabled, I also got another feature option that showed up in my notifications asking me if I wanted to enable it, and that is dividend reinvestment. And I'll show every single step that popped up on my screen, just like I did for the video where I showed the steps of enabling the fractional shares feature. So I'll show you the screen right here. It says dividend reinvestment. Grow your investments over time by automatically reinvesting cash dividends. So if you don't know already, this is also referred to as an acronym known as DRIP or DRIP, which is known as Dividend Reinvestment Plan. And for me to explain this just in basic terms for everyone to understand, for example, sometimes stocks give you dividends, which is basically a reward for owning that share. And for example, with Microsoft, currently I get 51 cents per share that I own every single quarter. So that's like February, July, September, and then December. That's an example of like every quarter. So you get it 4 times a year for that one share. So 4 times that 51 cent payment per year, and it equals about $2.04 per share at a total every year. But you get paid every quarter, and as you can see, I got paid on March 11th for owning 20 shares, in which I got 51 cents per share, and I got a total of $10.20. And DRIP, which is basically just reinvesting your dividends, gives you the ability, instead of this just inserting into your normal cash account, it'll insert into your buying power or whatever right here. That's normally what my dividends were transported to after I got paid them. It was just transported to this little cash bar where I can buy stocks with it. But now that I just unlocked this dividend reinvestment feature after fractional shares, it gives me the ability to, instead of just receiving that dividend in my cash part of Robinhood, it'll just reinvest whatever amount I got for dividends into another stock of what that dividend was from. So for example, what this will do now is the $10.20, say we got that once again, instead of that going into my cash part of Robinhood, my cash holdings, it would actually reinvest that $10.20 dividend into another partial share of Microsoft. So it would give me For example, I'll show it right here. We'll type in $10.20 and see how much it would give me. It would give me about 6% of a share. So the awesome thing about this is you don't really have to worry about going into your cash account and manually buying another partial share of Microsoft, because it just automatically does it for you, and it kind of helps you develop that consistency when you invest, and I really like that. However, that drip feature could not have been enabled unless I had already enabled fractional shares, because how can you reinvest something if you can't reinvest it with fractional shares because fractional shares are disabled? So I hope I explained all of that in basic terms, but it's just showing that we are getting basically almost every feature that you would normally have in these very consistent and reliable brokers like Vanguard, Charles Schwab, and a bunch of those ones out there that are brokers that have been there for such a long time, that are consistent, but they don't have very appealing user interfaces like Robinhood does. So now that Robinhood is starting to get all of these amazing features that other brokers have had for a while that Robinhood didn't have for a while, in my opinion, I'm starting to like Robinhood even more, because that was the disadvantage for such a long time. But one of the huge advantages, in my opinion, that you get with Robinhood is just the very entertaining and aesthetically pleasing user interface. And trust me, if you have any other broker accounts, I'm not throwing shade towards any other broker, I'm just saying the user interface is very archaic looking, and it looks like an old forum from like the 1990s or something. But with Robinhood, they try to make it aesthetically pleasing, the color palettes and all of the things like that. Everything is very satisfying to look at. So in my opinion, that's beneficial long term, because it keeps you checking in every day, it keeps you active in the app, and it honestly, personally, makes me want to invest a lot more because it makes it more entertaining and easily accessible. And I almost forgot just to show you the rest of the steps in case you're curious about me unlocking the dividend reinvestment plan. So after you get that first page with the cool animation, and that's just another detail, when are you going to get a cool animation like what I'm showing up on the screen right now? Like, no other broker out there really puts in that much effort into small details, and I just think that's really cool because they paid somebody out there to animate that just to show up in this feature page and make it a little bit more aesthetically pleasing to the user, and I really think that's awesome. And also, as you can see, it's just like a form of symbolism. As you can see, the water is dripping into various little things that hold it, and those things that are holding it, such as like these silo looking things and plants, those are like the stocks that you're investing into, so it's dripping it back into your stocks. And that's just another thing, the animations, the symbolism, is the small details that I really appreciate, and that's just one example of it. But anyways, on the next page after that, it shows how does it work. Dividend reinvestment grows your holdings over time by investing cash dividends back into your stocks and ETFs. And then it says, number one, automated reinvestments, which is will reinvest any cash dividends you earn on the next market day. And then two says pause at any time. You can pause your dividend reinvestments for individual stocks at any time. So I currently have them enabled, I believe, but I'm not necessarily sure if I'm going to pause them or not, just because personally I'm like an OCD person and I would rather own a full share than a partial share. So it's nice to have that option. And then on the final page, it just says you're enrolled. Going forward, you can automatically reinvest any dividend payments you receive. So I just wanted to show up those notification pages just for those of you that haven't got the feature enabled yet and are just curious as to what would show up. But that's basically all for that. And back onto the topic of just Robinhood in general, this is just why I think it is one of the best apps out there. I personally think it's the best phone broker app out there because of the user interface, because of all the features that they're finally adding in. And I do know that we have some problems with Robinhood. We had the Robinhood crash, and that was frustrating. But the one thing I have to admit, that Robinhood crash really didn't affect long-term investors that much, at least in my opinion. It mostly affected people out there that do option plays and stuff like that, in which everything is very time sensitive and time matters and access matters during market hours. So that certainly negatively affected them. But as a long-term investor, even the market going down for a short amount of time really doesn't bother me, because the only time that I have to engage in the market is when I buy, because I make sure that I buy high-quality long-term stocks that I'm not going to have to readjust my portfolio and sell on a certain day based off of what moves the market's making. So in terms of investing, I think it is the best app out there, and the only thing that I could add in saying that something that I would recommend for Robinhood to have would be to let us have retirement accounts that we can invest in as well. And I know this is available with some accounts, like I think maybe M1 Finance. And if they had the ability to invest in various retirement accounts, that would really just make it the absolute #1 phone app broker out there. And it's already my personal favorite as the #1 broker app out there. But that would just solidify it completely, because that is the only thing that I can't get with Robinhood currently, which would be like a Roth IRA or another another retirement account out there, and I have to use another broker to do that. So if I could just have it all in one with Robinhood, it would just make it amazing. And another thing to note about Robinhood is that you also, with your cash that you have aside right here, there's another waiting list for the Robinhood Debit Card. And although I'll probably never use that debit card just because I prefer to build credit on a credit card and pay it off consistently, and then also get cash bonuses that you usually get with a credit card, I still appreciate the fact that we get that debit card, because it also, once you sign up for that debit card, it gives you the ability to get like an interest rate for your cash balance, which is basically treated as a savings account. So I know it was like up to 1.8% at one point, and they've lowered it down to 0.30%, but I think once the stock market improves, you'll get a much better interest rate. So you can even use the cash that you have sitting aside as a form of building more cash every month from the interest rate from that, if you don't feel like investing in any stock. So it basically does what a bank does in terms of giving you an interest rate and a little percentage based off of what you have in that account, but it also gives you the option to invest and many other features along with that. So they're really doing a lot of great things out there currently. And just for full disclosure, I'm not getting paid by Robinhood to promote this video. The only thing that I get from Robinhood is from other people using my referral links, in which we both get free stocks. And I'll leave that down in the description below if you'd like to start investing with Robinhood. And then I'll leave it for Webull as well. But this was just a video that I felt like the need to create because I really appreciate what Robinhood has done for me. The user interface makes me very excited to look at the stock market every day. It's not like a boring graph or a boring layout that you see with a lot of brokers out there. So Robinhood has really helped me personally being consistent with investing, and it's had a lot of features that they keep adding to it. And I think that's a great thing, and it shows signs that they're a company that really wants to keep innovating and improving their platform. So I do appreciate that, and I just wanted to create this video out there for some of the people that are curious about Robinhood, and I just wanted to give my personal opinions on all of this. But anyways, I really appreciate you all watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please consider smashing that like button, subscribing maybe. I do videos like this all the time, except it's mostly about the stock market, my gains for the day. As you can see, I'm up $4,100 for today, and I usually break down my current holdings and my gains for each separate holding, and I like to talk about my predictions for the future as well. But I hope you all enjoy this video, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week.